UFC 317, Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira just finished, and I'm going to break down the entire card, starting with the prelims, ending with that amazing main event. Guys, Ilia Topuria, the double champ, is here. We'll get back to that, but starting the card, we had a fun heavyweight fight, Diniz versus Hines. This was a heavyweight clunker, honestly. Hines was this like guy from Minnesota. He looked like he was just happy to be there. He was coming in, lots of forward movement. He looked like he was landing the heavier shots to begin with, but also was wearing a lot more of the damage. I don't know if it was just because, sometimes these like super pale white guys just wear more damage than the, lightly tanned Brazilian looking dude, but it became more clear as the fight went on that Diniz was just a much cleaner striker. Lighter on his feet, sharp timing. He sort of looked like a blobbier version of Aspinall with like, we've got Cyril Gahn at home type footwork. And he just repeatedly kept catching Hines on the entries. Hines would come in, left hook, bang, left hook, bang. And the only big moment that Hines had in round one was he kept trying to do these takedowns, wasn't really getting anywhere, and he nearly landed an illegal knee, but I guess the knee was just off the ground, or I personally think the knee was grounded, but he threw two knees, and then when they showed the replay, they showed the second one, but whatever. Anyway, as the fight went on, when we get into round two, Diniz starts just punishing Hines, again with that slick footwork, just staying out of there, just being light on his feet, and just punishing Hines every single time he came in. And honestly, that was pretty much the rest of the fight. One thing is that Diniz did look like he was starting to get a bit exhausted, especially in the third round, like going out of the second round into the third round. During the break, he looked very fatigued, but he got eye poked in the third round by Hines, so I think that gave him like a little bit of a break to, catch his breath and ride out the rest of the fight. It was a pretty high striking output fight. I think like over 150 punches from Diniz and over 100 from Hines, and that was somewhere in the middle of the third round, which is quite a lot for heavyweights. I think it was just, a nice big sloppy heavyweight fight, which is always great. I don't know if Diniz is like a real prospect. I think he's just fun in a very shallow heavyweight division. I'd like to see him maybe fight like a Tai Tuivasa next and see what happens there. But moving on to Jakobe Smith versus Niko Price, this was a huge mismatch. I mean, closer than people thought. This was the biggest betting underdog in UFC history. Jakobe Smith was a plus 2,500 favorite going into the fight, which is insane. But it was pretty clear that there was a skill gap early. Jakobe Smith just was landing like really strong, clean punches. It dropped Niko really quick. Or I don't know if he dropped him. He hit him really hard and then took him down and was just like smashing him with control and ground and pound. And I think he has a pretty good wrestling pedigree from Oklahoma. And, DC was basically like, Oklahoma wrestling. Anyway, once they got back to their feet towards the end of the first round, Jakobe Smith, this, amazing, jacked fucking prospect, looked completely gassed. And then Niko also looked exhausted, but not as much. And he started tagging Jakobe Smith with some shots towards the end of that round. With about 15 seconds left of the first round, Niko Price does this crazy back fist, not even like a spinning back fist. He just like overreached with his punch, and then we're like, which completely missed, obviously. And then Jakobe Smith just like jabs him in the face and drops him. And that's basically the end of the first round. Going into the second round, both guys looked completely shot. It's actually pretty crazy that two welterweights have such low cardio to be able to even like go into the second round. But Jakobe secured another takedown, begins landing some solid ground and pound. Niko tried a few awkward submission attempts, but nothing really stuck. The crowd started booing because there wasn't really too much happening, and then Niko scrambles, tries to get up to his back, and Jakobe sinks in the rear naked choke for the finish. I really don't understand how two welterweights can be more tired than the heavyweight guys that fought before them. And even though I think that this was like another finish for Jakobe Smith and probably overall helps the hype train a bit in terms of his record, if I'm him, his manager, if I'm the UFC, anyone related to his career, I want him to be like really working on his cardio, doing whatever the hell Marab's doing to, look like he's on EPO basically, before we start getting him in there with some ranked opponents. Probably give him some more guys on the tail end of their career that he's likely to beat, get him to work on his cardio, and once he starts making those step ups, push him through. Because otherwise, I think that this is going to be a Bo Nickel 2.0. Moving on to Terrance McKinney versus Viacheslav Borshchev. What a terrible name. Terrance McKinney is a fun fighter, man. Like, even though he doesn't have, any wins against the top level competition, he's literally never had a fight go to a decision. Every single fight gets finished, whether he's finishing or he's the one getting finished. And this fight was no different. They started really fast. He catches a leg kick from Viacheslav and immediately takes him down. Then basically chain submissions from an anaconda to a das to a mounted guillotine and gets the tap all in under 1 minute. Looked really, really good. I don't think that the competition was great or anything like that, but he seemed on point. I think he'll always just be a fun fighter to see on the card. I really don't think that Terrance McKinney is going to go anywhere huge. If you look at the fact that every time he's had that like step up in competition, not even anything great, just like a top 15 ranked type of guy, he just loses. Moving on to Viviane Araujo versus Tracy Cortez. This one was, as all female fights, not the best fight in the world, but it was interesting. The first round was very grapple heavy. Araujo probably won this round, started strong, got back control, dominated the early positions. Cortez ended up reversing momentum with like a few guillotine attempts, including one that was like there when she was finishing the round. But like the skill level of these female fighters is so poor. Like she goes to jump the guillotine, but then doesn't even like really attempt to get her legs around Araujo to lock it in. I felt like that round could be scored either way. Probably give it to Araujo, but I wasn't paying the most attention in the world. Moving into the second round, this one was like completely opposite. The first round was like all grappling. Second round was mostly striking, but super low volume from both fighters. Cortez was more effective, landed better shots, ended the round with a takedown and some decent ground strikes. Easily goes to Cortez round 2. And then in round 3, Cortez dominates. She took a big up kick to the chin, but then ends up getting Araujo down like immediately. Lands some ground and pound, threatens submissions, maintains full control the whole time, and is like covering Araujo's mouth with her gloves, and then Araujo starts yelling, "Oleo, oleo." The commentators thought that she was talking to Tracy Cortez, like talking shit. But what she was trying to say is to like the corner and the referee that Cortez had like oil on her gloves or whatever, which honestly, Araujo just seemed more interested in complaining about the oil than actually getting back up to her feet or fighting. And at the end of the round, she seemed so annoyed that she refused to shake Tracy Cortez's hand. I'd be surprised if the complaint was like really legitimate, because obviously they check your gloves ahead of time. Obviously both girls with their hair done in the way that it is, like they've probably got hairspray and stuff like that in their hair. So if there was anything during the middle of the round, she touches her face, I could easily see it getting oil in there. But at the end of the day, it's like, what are you complaining about? Just get on with the fight. Like it just seemed like Araujo was just not in it. The commentators seem to talk about like Cortez having I guess she's ranked number 10th, so she'll be ranked 8th after this. Trying to position her on her way up for a title. I think that for the UFC, Tracy Cortez is a very marketable prospect because she's hot, but she's not good. Like really, it's not a good fighter. So nor are many of the female fighters, so she probably can, maybe even beat like a Rose Namajunas. Maybe. I don't think she beats Rose Namajunas. Maybe she beats like a Miranda Maverick, but I don't know. We'll see. Moving on to Hyder Amil versus Jose Miguel Delgado. This was a fun but very, very quick fight. Absolute blitz. Fight ended in like 26 seconds. Both guys came out swinging, but Jose Miguel Delgado is a lot sharper and just more violent. Comes in with this combo. He goes like jab to the body, right hook to the face, left hook gets like around the guard and grabs the tie clinch, throws a vicious knee that puts Hyder Amil on his ass, and then follows up with just like a couple of really strong elbows before Marc Goddard steps in and ends it. It's hard to know how good Jose Miguel Delgado is, but he does seem like a fun prospect. I'm interested to see what he does in the division. This is going to be like a big moment for him, so I'm interested to see who they put him up against next. Moving on to Gregory Rodriguez versus Jack Hermansson. This was like the main event of the prelim fights. Dude, both of these guys look gigantic for middleweight. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm 6'2", 200 pounds and fairly lean. These guys fighting at 185 look ridiculous. They look ridiculous. They look like they're like both 230 pounds in there. Now, probably not. They probably both look like they're about 215, 220, and maybe they are. Maybe that's how much they're cutting, 35, 40 pounds. But this weight cutting amount is starting to get ridiculous. All of these middleweights are just crazy. Look at like Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vettori, Paulo Costa. Even Sean Strickland right now looks like he's 240, 250 pounds out of camp. Dricus du Plessis is gigantic. Like, how big do you have? You're like cutting from heavyweight down to middleweight to be a middleweight fighter in the UFC at this point. I'm actually not that surprised that a guy like Israel Adesanya, even though he's super tall, is going to have a hard time in this division now. But, this fight was fun. Both guys, came out throwing heavy. Rodriguez was throwing a lot heavier. He's a really accomplished Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, but most of his fights end by knockout, and I can tell why. He just has stones in his hands, man. This guy hits so fucking hard. Stayed very composed, just sort of stalked Jack down the whole time. Jack Hermansson's trying to throw some shots to like back him up, but RoboCop Rodriguez just kept following him. Then not out of nowhere, but fucking Rodriguez comes in, throws this big left hook that just lands flush on Jack Hermansson's face, knocks him out cold, like stiff as a board, hits the ground, head smacks off the canvas, and then Rodriguez starts like slowly walking over to Jack. Herb Dean is like nowhere to be seen, and by the time that Rodriguez already has like the next punch loaded up, Herb Dean comes and like gives him a little cuddle behind his back to try and get him to like not throw the punch, rather than like pushing him or doing something to like really stop him from delivering another concussive blow to a guy in Jack Hermansson that's already completely unconscious, like completely stiff unconscious. It's like Herb Dean's basically sitting there going, no, he's not dead yet. Get him. Come on, you can get him one more. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Anyway, Rodriguez looked very calm, very patient. He's super explosive. This is actually the first time I'd seen him fight. I'm interested to see what's next for him. I would love to actually see Israel Adesanya versus Gregory Rodriguez. I don't know what you do with Jack Hermansson. I'm curious if after damage like that, his chin has just been cracked for good. I know he did just fight Joe Pyfer before and beat Joe Pyfer in a 5-round fight. So, he's probably got a chin still, but that just looked so brutal. And I would maybe like to see Bo Nickel fight Jack Hermansson. I think that'd be an interesting fight. There's also some storyline there with the fact that Hamzat and Jack have had like a grappling contest before. So that's what I would do. I would put RoboCop against Izzy and then Jack Hermansson against Bo Nickel. Moving on to the main card. This is where my picks start to come in. First fight up on the main card, we had Payton Talbott versus Felipe Lima. And I think most people, including me, got this one wrong. I think we all thought that Payton Talbott, after his fight against Raoni Barcelos, was just going to get mauled in this fight. Felipe Lima was on a 14-fight win streak, had trained with Hamzat, had good wrestling, had sort of that DDP type of style. Lima started strong with early striking success and a takedown, but Talbott showed really solid wrestling defense. Like his wrestling defense has just gone up through the roof since the Raoni Barcelos fight. It's crazy. So he quickly returns to his feet. Like the first takedown was sort of like shrugged off, but then Felipe Lima just lands like a pure double leg takedown. But then Talbott gets straight up to his feet, and as Lima tries to drag him down again, Talbott ends up doing like a Granby roll into the top position. Great scramble. And so he's got that dominant top position. Lima eventually ends up on top again, lands some ground and pound. The round finished with both guys basically like clinch wrestling against the cage and exchanging positions, but Talbott looked really strong in those 50-50 positions against the cage. He was able to just turn Felipe Lima around and get up against him. It also looked like he'd put on a bit of muscle mass since his last fight. At the end of round one, it was a close round. I probably would give it to Lima, but it was very close. Round two, similar beginning. Lima gets off early with the strikes and then starts to wrestle, but Talbott reverses takedowns twice and starts controlling top position both times. Again, Talbott's wrestling defense has leveled up like crazy. I guess he's just been practicing that bedroom cardio with Frank Ocean like Colby does with the Mamacitas. The stats by the end of round two, even though it seemed like Lima was throwing more punches, I guess he mustn't have been, because Talbott had 25 punches to the head, 25 strikes to the head, 6 strikes to the body, 4 strikes to the legs, whereas Lima had 13, 6, 0. And that was like halfway, 2/3 of the way through the second round. Talbott ended up letting Lima back up. So he had him on the ground on both of those times that he had dominant position, let him up, and then was just lighting him up on the feet for the rest of the second round. Towards the end, Lima briefly takes the back, but then went to take him down, scrambled around, got his back, but then he actually had him on the ground, got his back, but then Talbott stood up, shook him off, and ended up in north-south, which looks like it's probably Payton Talbott's favorite position. He's getting like a good old 69 on Felipe Lima, and then transitions to mount and just starts landing some quick, clean shots in the last few seconds of round two. Easy, Talbott wins round two. Round three, Lima starts out really hot, spinning back fist, hard shots, another takedown attempt, gets Talbott down briefly, but can't keep him there. Talbott showed excellent octagon control. Like when they were standing up, he was just stalking Felipe around the octagon and like cutting all the angles, stopping him from really being able to get anywhere. Lands this awesome spinning back kick as Lima's trying to escape. And Lima ends up like a minute later, not even a minute later, 30 seconds later, trying to throw a high kick, slips over onto the ground. Talbott pounces on him, gets dominant position again, ends up taking the back and mounting. And all the while, he's like, throwing punches and multiple times during the fight, but especially at the end here, big smile on his face as he's beating the shit out of Felipe Lima. Very strong finish for Talbott. He ended up getting the 29-28 win, so I guess they did give the first round to Felipe Lima. It was interesting, man. I really, really did not expect it to go that way. I thought that the blueprint was there after the Raoni Barcelos fight. I did not think that Payton Talbott had enough time to really level up his wrestling, but I guess this guy's young enough and just smart enough to be able to really adapt his game. I'm interested to see how much more he can level up. And he talked prior to the fight about how losing that Barcelos fight was really good for him because I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying that like his ego had started to get pretty out of control. His life was getting quite big, and he was like, maybe if I'd have won that fight, I wouldn't have dialed in my game, and I would have ended up having to learn these lessons at a point which was way worse. And I think he's probably right. I think that he humbled himself after that Raoni Barcelos fight and is now understanding that he needs to keep improving if he wants to keep leveling up, because even though he was really good when he, did the contender series and when he was fighting these cans, as you start to get up those rankings in the UFC, you're reaching huge level ups. Like it seems even crazy. Like if you think about some of the fights that we've talked about, like the welterweight fight at the start between Jakobe Smith and Niko Price, it's like the cardio and conditioning that some of these guys have that are like unranked UFC fighters, or even, the 10 to 15 ranked UFC fighters, even some of the 5 to 10 ranked UFC fighters, which is crazy. They almost like don't even have enough gas to go all 3 rounds, definitely not 5 rounds. And then you've got these like 2 to 3 guys in each division at the very, very top who are just beasts. Like they can go forever. They've got cardio forever. Their skills are all just maxed out. And it's like, I really don't understand how you're a professional fighter fighting in the UFC and you don't, at the very least, have the same level of cardio. I understand that Merab is a freak, but like, I feel like everybody should have Dustin Poirier level cardio. Maybe that's a casual take, but I really feel like if this is your job, right? This is your job. This is all you do is be a professional fighter. You're trying to become a champion. Like, you can't go 3 rounds. Anyway, these guys, it wasn't so much the case with these guys, but this next fight coming up, which I'll get to in a second, between Beneil Dariush and Renato Moicano, is sort of the perfect example of this. But back to Payton Talbott really quickly, it does look like he's becoming a decent contender, not just like a flashy striker, but with the improved wrestling and the fight IQ. Who do you put him up against next? I could see him go up against Cody Garbrandt. I could see him do like a Malcolm Wellmaker, the guy that just beat Chris Moutinho. I think that would be a bad fight because he's just killing stars. I'm surprised they even did this matchup between these two, but I guess Felipe Lima wasn't a star, and it's really raised Payton Talbott's stock quite a bit. So I think Cody Garbrandt, maybe a rematch with Hany Barcelos. Either of those would be really interesting. I don't know what you do now with Felipe Lima. Maybe Felipe Lima should fight Cody Garbrandt or something like that, but why waste it on someone that's just lost? I don't know. I don't know what you do with Felipe Lima. If anybody watched that, I'd be interested to know what you think that you should do with Felipe Lima after this one. Moving on to Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. This was interesting. I mean, I got this one right. There was a slow start. Both guys were really just feeling each other out. Moicano ends up breaking the stalemate towards the end of the first round with this perfect straight right on Dariush's chin, dropped him clean, ends up getting dominant control and, finishing out the first round. Obviously took out the first round. Round 2, Dariush comes out aggressive, knowing that he needs to turn the tide, lands a solid left hook, and then chains together like 4 takedown attempts. Eventually secures top control, and Moicano basically just accepts bottom position for the rest of the round. Dariush, just has the dominant position, chips away with ground and pound, takes the round, gets his head clear after the end of round 1. And then moving into round 3, Moicano looked completely gassed. Like, no snap on any of his strikes. Just is barely even like fully extending it. It's just like sort of throwing it out there, walking Dariush down. But I think that's just because Dariush was happy with it. Dariush was like, okay, well, if you're not going to throw anything at me, you can keep walking at me, and I'll just stand back here, and I'm just going to throw big punches at you as you come close. So Dariush ended up controlling the round with superior grappling again, gets Moicano down, solid punches, closes out strong, wins the round pretty clearly. Honestly, wasn't the best fight in the world, but Dariush gets back in the win column. 29-28 decision. Obviously, Moicano wins round 1, but the knockdown was not enough to steal the fight. I think that this showed that Beneil Dariush is still a top-tier fighter. Like, he's never going to be that champion level. Like, he lost to Charles and Armin, and I think he would probably still lose to those guys just because of the power that Charles has, and Armin's probably overall a better grappler, and even Armin knocked him out, so obviously he'd be able to do it again. I don't see Dariush beating like a Gaethje. I don't see him beating any of those top 5 guys, but that gatekeeper between those two areas, I don't see anyone below the top 5. I don't see a Fiziev beating Dariush. I don't see any Benoit Saint Denis. None of these guys are going to beat Dariush. He's really, really, really good. Super humble in his post-fight interview. He said that he doesn't care about the fame. Everything's for Jesus. He doesn't care about who his next fight is. So it's very hard to care about what happens next for Beneil. For Moicano, on the other hand, it's like, what was going on with that gas tank? This is what I was talking about a second ago. It's like, you're meant to be a top level UFC fighter. Now, I understand you're grappling with Beneil Dariush, and I'm sure that's exhausting, but like, this is a 3-round fight. What do you can't last 3 rounds? You knocked the guy down in the first round. Like, and the first round was overall nothing much happened. In round 2, you basically accepted bottom position eventually. I understand that he had to fight off, 3 takedowns before that happened, but I feel like this was a cardio issue. I don't think that Dariush broke Moicano. I think that Moicano just gassed out, and I don't really know what you do with him now either. Maybe for Dariush you do a Mateusz Gamrot rematch. Anyway, moving on to Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van. This was a fucking banger. Oh my god, this was a good fight. Holy shit. There was a fight on the recent Jamal Hill Roundtree card, Nicholas Mota versus Sadikov, who trains with Marab. And, Nicholas Mota in the first round landed like a 75 punch combo is what, everyone keeps saying. And the commentators were saying that was like the best fight they'd ever seen in ages. And I was annoyed when I heard that, because I'm like, dude, there's fights like Royval Van that happen when you have 2 really elite guys that both do not want to lose, do not think they're there to lose. Like, both guys think that they're there to win the fight. And, this was the perfect example 1 week later of what a really good fight looks like. Royval opened up with volume, jabs and leg kicks from range for the first minute and a half, basically controlling the distance. Van throwing nothing for the first minute and a half because he's just sort of trying to find his way in. But once he started engaging, he was landing bombs, man. Once he basically was just trying to get in, Royval moved forward and just bang, 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 combo, like these big hook combos. From the middle of that round onwards, Van takes over the first round, just landing crisp right hooks. Every time he would throw, there's like a 3 or 4 punch combo, real damage, like really hard shots in comparison to Royval's shots seemed like they were there to like hit him, but not really do damage. Just like get the strikes out, get the volume out. And yeah, like Royval was throwing more, but in the first round he had 33% accuracy, while Van was sitting at around 50% accuracy. And again, those punches were way harder. So it looked like Joshua Van appeared to drop Brandon Royval, but it could have been like half knockdown, half slip. Joshua Van honestly looked like flyweight Pacquiao. His boxing was very, very smooth. Wins the first round easy. Second round, the action continues immediately, like picks up right where it left off. Van comes in, starts landing early and hard, but Royval starts heating up quickly. You can start to see he goes, oh shit, I need to start doing something here. And it turns into a dogfight real quick. Royval begins to close distance, landing sharp straight lefts, because he's southpaw, like these sharp straight lefts, just bang, bang. Doing damage now. Like, he's really starting to throw his punches with intent. That urgency had kicked in, and he was matching Van's firepower. Van was still finding success with, lots of body punches when they're coming close in the clinch, knees in the clinch, combos every single time. But definitely round 2 goes to Royval. The statistics were like 80 significant strikes for Royval, 57 for Van by the end of round 2. So I'm guessing that you would give that round to Royval, but again, very close. Round 3, absolute chaos. Both guys are just throwing everything they fucking have into winning this fight. Royval started to edge. Like, I really think he was starting to win just with the pace and the output and just the range. He just was able to catch Joshua Van, and Joshua was finding it hard to sort of get in through the punches. But with like 25 seconds left in the round, Joshua Van drops Royval with this beautiful left hook and just pours on vicious ground and pound for the rest of the round. Massive exclamation mark at the buzzer. Van ends up standing up, running straight over to the cage, jumping onto it, mounting it like he won. I think that it was pretty clear that he had stolen the round. Not stolen the round, because again, it was like they were both, it was just a car crash. But I think if that hadn't happened, Royval probably wins that. Even though Royval was wearing more of the overall damage, it was just clear that he was landing more shots. But when that knockdown happened, that became Joshua Van's fight. Honestly, this is an instant fight of the year contender. It was it was even more legendary because Joshua Van stepped in on short notice to take it. So huge moment for Joshua Van. He's having like the best month of his life. 3 weeks ago, has a nice big win, gets a performance bonus, buys his mum a house, and then 3 weeks later knocks out the number, not knocks out, but beats the number one contender convincingly by the end. And after the fight, well, actually, I'll get to that in a second, but this could have been the best fight of the year, easily, so far. I think it was, in my opinion, the best fight of the year. Maybe Alex Volkanovski, Diego Lopez as well was beautiful, but this is a fight of the year contender for sure. Is Joshua Van, how good is Joshua Van? I want to know, and there's that Activian channel, if he does like good breakdowns if you want to look him up, but I think he did a breakdown on Joshua Van. I'm asking myself, like, is he the new face of flyweight? But it's hard to really tell because I haven't seen much of his grappling. I just see him like really good striking. He has phenomenal takedown defense. Actually, that is interesting. I think his takedown defense when I was doing the stats for my picks was like 91% or something like that. I don't know how that'll go against Royval, which again I'll get to in a second, but Joshua Van completely announced himself as the next contender for the title. Again, we'll get back to that in 1 second. But moving on to Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France, this one was just a mauling, honestly. Kai Kara-France doing his whole thing ended up looking a little bit silly when you just get fucking mauled the whole fight. Pantoja pressured early. Starting in round one, he lands a clean left hook and then just drives Kai Kara-France straight to the fence for a takedown. Gets the takedown, takes the back, gets a body lock, controls Kai Kara-France for over 2 minutes, eventually moves to full mount, stays on top, dominates the round. Not the whole time in mount. He's sort of like mount, half guard, other side, mount. Clear 10-9 round to Pantoja, textbook grappling control. Second round, Pantoja opens up with sharp striking, then just literally runs over Kai Kara-France into a takedown. I don't even think he actually took him down. He just ran at him so aggressively that Kai's like on the back foot trying to get out of the way and then like falls over and Pantoja just like dump trucks onto him. Kai gets back to his feet, lands some clean shots. He's showing some signs of life. He's definitely fighting back. He is landing some straights, but he's really having to duck into it to try and get through. And then he tried to wrestle Pantoja back, which looked like a bit of a tactical error because Pantoja ended up getting him back on the ground. Once they were in space again, Pantoja was also starting to win the striking exchanges. Even on the feet. He was just he was hitting Kai more accurate. Kai was finding it hard to land. Pretty clear that second round also goes for Pantoja, but it did look like he was starting to slow down a bit rather than, the intense pressure that he put on in the first 2 rounds. But then round 3, Pantoja just opens up with that pressure again. I guess he didn't slow down at all. Closes the distance, clinches up with Kai, drags Kai Kara-France down to the ground, quickly transitions to back control, sinks in a rear naked choke, gets the tap. This was GOAT level mauling. Relentless, efficient, dominant. He just destroyed Kai Kara-France. I don't know what you do if you're Kai. He seemed very upset. Something I felt after the fight when I was watching them put the belt on Pantoja is he looked jacked. Way more jacked than he has in a fight before. My feel on it, my opinion is that Pantoja's on the juice. He's on Paulo Costa's secret juice. That's my guess. I don't know, but he looked gigantic in comparison to his fights previously and super lean. And I just feel like, can you really put on that much size, shredded, late in your career like that? Like, seems a bit weird. I feel like he's on steroids, but just an opinion. Um, After the fight, Joe Rogan brings Joshua Van into the cage and they have like a friendly face-off. It's very peaceful, not like what happened with Ilia and Paddy later, which again we'll get to in a second. But um, the UFC clearly, wants that Pantoja versus Van fight to happen, and it will be a good fight. But I don't know if this is like, I don't know if Joshua Van's ready for Pantoja. Again, he does have that amazing takedown defense, so maybe. Who else does Pantoja fight? He's like literally lapping the division, so I don't know what you're meant to do with him. I've heard people say that Pantoja, if he beats Joshua Van, should go up and fight Merab, but I just don't feel like he's big enough to fight a guy like Merab. Even if he is on the gear, it's like, Merab's too big, too strong. To me, this looked like Pantoja's cleanest performance as champion ever. He's fought Kai Kara France before in the Ultimate Fighter, and I honestly thought that fight was a draw because they only did 2 rounds, but he just demolished him. It was the cleanest I've ever seen. It looks like Pantoja's also still evolving, not necessarily in his skill set, but maybe in his mindset around fighting. It was almost like he didn't fear Kai's power at all and just went, I'm going to destroy you. Can Joshua Van beat Pantoja? I think he can in the striking side of things, but is it just going to end up looking like a Kai Kara France fight again? His takedown defense is way better than Kai's. I'd like to see Joshua Van fight Brandon Moreno, but the problem is that if Brandon Moreno wins, then do you have him fight Pantoja again? I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world because I've only fought once and it was a very close fight, but I guess we'll see. I think the next fight that we're going to see in that flyweight championship, or the next fight for Pantoja, is definitely going to be Joshua Van, especially seeing as they got him in the octagon and made them do a face-off. Pantoja was the one who actually initiated the face-off as well. Joshua Van was just being really courteous and nice and friendly, so it was very interesting. Moving on to the main event, Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. I mean, I think everyone called this one. I called it to a T. Round 1, high stakes energy from the start. Both guys come out just throwing heat. Charles clinches, gets Ilia up against the fence, or tries to take him down, but Ilia just great balance, awesome hip control, reverses the takedown, ends up landing on top, instantly transitions to side control and then to a crucifix. He literally crucifixed Charles Oliveira. Super dominant position. Charles is able to scramble out of it pretty quickly. And immediately, Charles's jiu-jitsu is just so ridiculously high level, it's insane. He scrambles out of the crucifix directly into a leg lock, ankle lock type of position. Topuria stays composed, gets himself out of there, gets his leg out of there, and then Charles is just sort of laying on his back while Topuria stands over him, kicks his leg a couple of times until Marc Goddard stands Charles up, and then it happens. Ilia jabs to the body, then a snap jab through Charles's guard. Charles goes to throw a straight right, and as it's coming in, Topuria sort of parries it with his left. Big right hook that Charles is already unconscious. And then the left hook follows it up, hits him again, and Charles is completely out cold before he even hits the ground. And before Marc Goddard even has a moment to understand what's happening, Ilia just bang, bang, 2 more shots into Charles's head while he's on the ground, and then Goddard pushes him off. Beautiful, beautiful fight for Ilia. Just perfect. That right hook, left hook combo, parry right hook, left hook, bang, bang. That could be knockout of the year. I'm struggling to think of another knockout that's happened so far this year that would actually beat it, but it was crazy. Ilia Topuria becomes double champ. He did it. He said he was going to do it all week. He was having press conference after press conference that he set up for himself. He's having photo shoots wearing two belts. It would have aged so poorly if he'd have lost that fight, but he got it done, man. He really got it done. Whew. He then goes full villain in his Octagon interview. He calls the rest of the lightweights a bunch of pussies. He calls Paddy Pimblett a blonde bitch. He mocks Arman Tsarukyan for pulling out with like a fake back injury. Rogan then invites Paddy into the Octagon, which is hilarious because you got Gaethje and Arman Tsarukyan both there, both ranked higher than Paddy. But Paddy comes in. He's sort of trying to be a little bit respectful to Ilia initially. He's like, that was a good punch, lad, but, you're never going to knock me out with a punch like that. And Ilia's like, I'm going to submit you, dude. I'm going to put my balls on your face. And Paddy's like, you've never submit me. You couldn't knock me out, lad. Ilia shoves Paddy, like goes, get out of here, shoves him, like honestly felt like a scripted WWE moment, but with the serious lack of promotion that's been happening in the UFC, I'm here for it. Rogan and security like sort of jump in to wrap it all up, and Rogan finishes off his Octagon interview with Ilia, which is awesome. This was the scariest that Ilia has ever looked, which is crazy. And if you just think about his last three fights, he knocks out Alex Volkanovski, knocks out Max Holloway, and then knocks out Charles Oliveira. Back to back to back. That is just insane, man. I think Oliveira's style, this was a really bad style matchup for him. I don't think that this, Charles has shown that berserker style that he has works against most of the guys in the division, but Ilia's just too smart, timing's too good, his boxing's too good, his fight IQ's too good, his grappling's too good. He is the next generation of fighter. He keeps saying it, but he actually is. It feels like Topuria is now a massive star in the UFC. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be looking at Topuria as like McGregor 2.0 now. I don't think he has the same exact star power as McGregor. Obviously, he doesn't have the same star power as McGregor yet, but if he can somehow go up to welterweight and take that belt too, oh my God, man, it'll be crazy. It'll be so crazy. Ilia versus Paddy, like, is that beef real? It seems like they don't actually even hate each other, but they just both, know how to promote and want to actually promote, which is, again, nice to see out of fighters these days, because I don't understand why fighters are so allergic to promoting their own fights. Gaethje and Arman being in the crowd, honestly, Paddy getting the fight will just make me happy just to know how salty both of those guys are going to be. Arman turning down the Paddy fight and then Paddy getting to fight for the belt. Gaethje saying that he deserves a title shot and then watching a guy that's ranked below him get it. It just makes me so happy. It's like that scene in South Park where Cartman makes that kid eat his parents in a stew and he's like licking his tears up. That's what I feel like Paddy's doing to Gaethje and Arman. Anyway, I don't think that Paddy can beat Ilia. I think that he doesn't have like the worst shot in the world, just because of how big and tall and strong that I'm guessing that he is. Like big and tall I can see, but at that type of size, I'm guessing that he's pretty damn strong as well. But he leaves his chin up in the air. He's been tagged and dropped before. I know that Ilia's been dropped before as well, but it seems like he learned from his mistakes much better. Paddy's just way more wild. I don't think that his grappling is good enough to handle Ilia if Charles can't do it. Obviously there's a bunch of fun fights at lightweight, but I really just want to see Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. I'm so annoyed that Makhachev moved up to welterweight. And, I get what people say about like, oh, yeah, but he wouldn't have gotten the respect for beating another featherweight because, look at what happened when he beat Volkanovski. Well, firstly, when he first fought Volkanovski, he barely beat him, and a lot of people thought that he actually lost that fight. And the second one was like on 2 weeks' notice. So, yeah, it does get discounted a bit. But this guy has just knocked out Volk and Holloway Now Oliveira too. And okay, yes, that hadn't happened before, but now this is undeniable. He beat Oliveira way quicker and way more dominantly than Islam Makhachev did. And Islam Makhachev still obviously handily destroyed Oliveira, but not like this. This was crazy, man. It feels like Makhachev is running from Topuria up to welterweight. I know that that's not what's happening. I know he's just trying to get his other belt, but if he beats JDM and the next fight for Islam is not Ilia, I'm sorry. I don't understand what we're doing here. Because you got one guy that's moved up a division, is calling you out, the guy that was you meant to be at this division. You move out of the division, he destroys the next guy in line. He's still calling you out. He says that if JDM wins, he wants to go to welterweight. So let's make it happen. Let's make that 3-belt thing happen. And if Islam loses to JDM, I love that Ilia said that if Islam loses to JDM, that he's not getting a fight with Ilia at lightweight immediately. That is hilarious to me. If he just refuses to fight Islam and makes him wait in line like Islam did to him, oh, more of those tears. More of those tears of Scott Tenemans from South Park. Man. Oh, such a great fight night. Such a great pay-per-view card. This was like the best card in so long. We've had so many shit cards recently, and this one was actually really good. I don't know what you do next with Oliveira. He's done so much in the sport. He's made like $1 million just from performance of the night bonuses, not to mention like all the money that he's actually made from fighting, from being the champ. Maybe a rematch against Armin. That's like the only fight that really makes sense to me. Other than that, if that's not what we're doing, then I think he should just retire. Retire early. Why do you need to keep fighting? You came from the favelas in Brazil. Like, you have tons of money. You've changed your entire family's life forever. Like, if he's not fighting Armin, I would love to see Charles do Bronx retire and not take any more damage. He's been in some wars. He's been dropped so many times. Move on. Move on to the next phase. I know that sounds weird. I know we all want to see Charles Oliveira fight more and more, but like, the only fight that I would want to see him do is against Armin Tsarukyan. Maybe if Max Holloway beats Dustin Poirier, Max versus Oliveira to get that one back after that weird moment where he sort of gave up in the middle of the fight. But do you really want to see Oliveira get in there again if there's no chance that he's going to fight for the title? Because like, there's no real way that Oliveira gets his way back to a title shot again, right? I don't know. Anyway, UFC 317, Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. What a card. What a card. What did you think? I so want to talk to anybody about this card. So like, please leave me some comments. You know, like, subscribe, it gets the video out there to more people. I want to start a conversation about this card because I had so much fun watching it, and I just, I feel like the UFC is back. We're back, baby. We're